Well, hello, everyone.
Thank you.
I am so happy to be here for this conversation today. I'm Brenda Harrington, and I'm here having a very interesting conversation with Yareen Kumor around the topic of creativity. Yareen, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to talk.
Welcome, and I'm glad to be with you and you with your audience. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, as we find our way out of the pandemic and all of the things that we've dealt with over the last couple of years, we're seeing so much information about what organizations are facing, challenges from everything stemming from supply chain issues to loss of key talent. And it really is a time of formidable challenges that we really haven't seen before. And so everybody's trying to figure it out. We can't go back to what we did in 2018 and 2019. We've got to try some new things. And so there are lots of conversations emerging about creativity, which is why I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about this. So when we think about this from an organizational standpoint, how can an organization become creative? How can an organization embed creativity into its culture?
Well, first of all, I would like to respond on the Corona crisis because I think that the coronavirus conducts a battle of wits with us that cause us to be more creative anyhow. Because somehow if we are intelligent, we have about 130 IQ, right? If we are very intelligent, 130, 140. I think the virus had 3,000 because it's all the time surprises us. He's very creative. I don't know if it's he or she or it, but it surprises us. It conducts all kinds of creative strategies, and it changes very rapidly according to the obstacles that he faces. So we can learn a lot from the virus itself, sort of a course in creativity.
Great
And
point.
in this battle, sometimes we win, sometimes it win, or he win, or she win. I don't know. And we have to be very on guard. We have to be on guard, to be very creative, to open our minds, not to get stuck in all kinds of fixations and experience and just duplicate the experience as if nothing was changed and so on. So that is a general remark about the virus and the crisis itself. Now, according to your questions about the organization, usually the image of creativity is sort of a personal talent, a gift from God. But also an organization can be creative systematically, and not just by saying phrases and slogans. Let's be creative, let's be open, let's support our employees and so on. And these slogans have nothing to do with achievements. It has to be all kinds of mechanisms that will enable the organization as a whole and the employees to be more creative and to get the backing from the principals. I'll give you an example. Um, if you have a mechanism that enable the employees to fail, so if the organization would like just achievements and it doesn't let the people a chance to fail, then they will never dare to think differently.
Yeah.
They will go in the highway that actually make sure that the success, the regular success, will be duplicated. And then you won't have any breakthrough. At the moment that you let the people to gamble, to go out of the freeway, to try another thing, to try new approach, you actually back them also the ability to fail. And if they, just let's say, were sloppy, were not responsible enough, and so on, kick them out of the organization because they were sloppy, because they didn't take responsibility, because they were not disciplined. But at the moment that on behalf of the basic principles of the organization, they tried and failed, embrace their failure, because the failure of tomorrow can be the success of the failure of yesterday can be the success of tomorrow, and there is no contradiction between them. On the contrary, the whole is bigger than its part.
That is so profound. And so what I get from that is that you have to make it safe to fail. It has to be sanctioned. It has to be okay to
Yeah,
fail. And when I was listening to your comment, I was reflecting on failures that I can recall that have become huge successes. One of them is the Post-it note, right? If you hear
right,
the,
right.
the 3M
3M,
story on
3M,
Post-it
right,
notes, yeah, that was a
right.
mistake. And look at
Yeah.
what a beautiful mistake it became.
No, no doubt about it. Because yes, but it didn't come. It was not just present from God that it happened. It
Right.
was part of the 3M's cultural approach since 1900, when they started they started their existence, because they had principles that enable such a failure. They had principles that authorize the people to deal with things that are not attached to their regular way of conducting their work, and that the reason that the one, Mr. Fry or Fry, that actually was singing in a choir, and these small papers fell from the from his booklet. Then he had the idea how to make the post-it in a way that it won't harm or disturb the process of singing. And that's why he was open enough to see the weak glue as a chance and not as a failure. And then dozens of years they made a lot of money out of this failure.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they didn't fail as such failures that they had to pay for them, and they did it without whining, without being asking mercy. They fail as part of their cultural approach. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this is so interesting because we are conditioned, I think that we've got to get it right. We go through grade school and middle school, and we look for perfect grades and recognition academically, and it's difficult to break out of that. When we think about people who are in very structured, very defined professions and disciplines, it can also be very difficult for them to think more creatively. So you say that it's not a natural gift. Can you teach me to be creative if I don't have creative tendencies?
Yeah. First of all, of course, I can teach you, but then it'll be like selling ice for the Eskimos, because probably you are creative anyhow. But suppose that I would like to add a bit with a proper modesty, then of course I can teach you like anybody else, the same as I can teach myself
Okay.
from others, because um, I'm not against natural gift. I'm not against natural talent. It's a great blessing. But the point is that you can be more creative whether you are square or creative. In both cases, you can be more creative than you are if you are equipped with the right techniques and tools that were researched all over the world. I took all the approaches all over the world. The American that actually was concentrated on the inventor, the sociological and the psychological background of the inventor. The European approach that actually was more concentrated on the process itself of invention, and the Russians that were interested in the end product. The Altshuler was the one that actually collected 40,000 patent patents and actually identified the basic principles behind them. And then after he identified these principles, he changed them to techniques. And then he shared it with people like us that didn't invent patent. So I took the cream de la cream of all the approaches all over the world, and I added some of my own, some of the Israeli and the Jewish way of thinking, which is which has a great tradition about creativity from the Talmud, from the old scrolls over 2,000 years ago, and I combined all of them to the whole system, and I teach it. I did it already 3,000 times all over the country to any organizations that would like to think differently and to think out of the box, and sometimes also internationally. Bloomberg and others in China and once in the States too. But I think that organizations can be more creative, and I got a lot of feedback from IBM, Microsoft, others that some kind of breakthroughs were related to ideas that they got in these workshops. I won't pretend that it was because of me, of course, but it gave them ideas, it gave them incentive, it gave them technique to use and to be more creative by themselves because of the tools that I shared with them. So it was a bypass, but I feel that I contributed a bit. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that would lead me to believe that there's no age limitation. Sometimes we
No.
think about creativity as being limited for young people and youth and children. So are you saying that there's no age limit to become or to
No,
develop
not at
creativity?
all. Not at all. Not at all. The image says, well, if you are 70, what should I learn? I had everything in my past. I was creative when I was child and so on. But the point is like that. All of us are born creative. We lose some of our creativity because our educators that actually forces us to go according to the line, to be disciplined, not to dare, not to think in a way that the teacher is not expecting to you to think, and so on. But in a way, we can preserve some of our creativity with no age limit.
Mhm.
On the contrary, when suppose that you are retired, you have more time to enrich yourself, to have a more interesting paths and things that you didn't have time to consider. I do it myself. I'm not. I don't look to you. I'm trying to be in shape, but I don't look to you 30 years old, and not 6 years old. Although within myself, I'm 6 years old. That's true. But being close to 70, I open all the time new options, and I celebrate, and I become more creative than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's not because I speak about it and I write books about it or whatever. It's because everybody can be like that, and you too, no doubt about it. And what we do now is actually work together in order to spread this wealth to others, people, and other imaginations of people, and others to make the audience more creative. No doubt
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. I've
It
sometimes been
contains a
accused
lot
of
of
being.
joy, a lot of joy. It's not a burden. It's a lot of joy behind it.
No, I agree. I was going to say I sometimes am accused of being too creative, but I find it a great source of energy and renewal. So that I
Right.
agree with you. I agree with
So,
you.
so I oppose the phrase too much creative. No, you are
Okay.
not too much. You're always creative enough. Compare with your wishes and abilities and potentials.
Great. Great. So do you think there's a difference between the gradual evolution of ideas and these aha, eureka moments?
Yeah, yeah. Because I think, of course, there is a big difference. I don't know how to teach Aurica. I don't think Leonardo da Vinci or Picasso could teach to be how to be Leonardo da Vinci or Picasso. They had this God's gift, and of course, that's something that you cannot teach. But But we are speaking about systematic creative thinking,
Yes.
and then we don't compete Picasso or Leonardo da Vinci, we compete ourselves. And in this battle, there is just one winner, the one who participates in this competition. It's you or me. And at the moment that you became more creative, either you come up with practical product, practical breakthroughs, a practical contribution to society, to the company, to yourself, or to your family, or even if you didn't do it, you still have the joy of the process. You still have the challenge, the tension, the good tension of the challenge, and the point that you discover something new. Look, the inventor of the wheel is anonymous. We don't know who invented the wheel, but he made a huge revolution, right? So somehow, probably, he was quite satisfied. And he doesn't care if you and me know something about his biography or not. He did something very significant. And I think at the moment that we create something significant, either to us or to society, then we justified ourselves, our existence.
Yeah.
We didn't duplicate other expectations on our soul as if we're nothing, because we value something, and the real value is to put your fingertips on your lives.
That is pretty profound, especially from through an individual lens. But I reflect on some of the words that you use that I embrace: joy and satisfaction. Unfortunately, stakeholders and particularly shareholders don't speak in those terms. They think about
Right,
risk and they think
right,
about,
right,
revenue. And so when you think in terms of failure and the beauty and the opportunities that emerge from failures, how do you juxtapose that? How do you compare that with the associated risk to
right,
get the people, organizational leaders to buy in to these
right.
ideas?
So I don't think, again, it has some kind of real problem within it. Why? Because I don't say, as a creative promoter, creativity promoter, I don't say to the shareholders, don't care about money, just gamble like in the casino, and if it will be good, you'll have a great revenue, and if it will fail, so well, we lost it. No, 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 no. I don't mean like that. We are not in the casino. We don't gamble unresponsible gamble.
Right.
But suppose that there is some kind of financial flexibility to share and to gamble part of the money, part of the investment, uh, to dare, and if they succeed, they will lead the company to huge success and huge boundaries and so on. And if it will fail, it's part of the investment. It is part of the investment. So you lost about 5%, 10%. Maybe within the failure itself, you actually discovered new approach that you didn't think about it initially before. And suddenly you have a new option that you didn't think about it. And although now it is considered as a failure. So it's actually the good idea within the bad idea. What is drip irrigation? Drip irrigation is a pipe that has holes in it. So it's a damaged pipe, right? Drip irrigation is a damaged pipe because it
Right.
has holes in it. The water just get out. And look what happened within the bad idea of a pipe that got wrong. They had huge breakthroughs that brought so much blessing to starvation all over the world. And by the way, it was an Israeli invention by Netafim. It was an Israeli invention. I know the inventor. He actually looked at that pipe that was got wrong and had the idea that this is the way to go straight to the roots and to enlarge the corpse 4 times more, and that was a huge revolution in mainly in Africa and also in Israel, but
Tremendous
mainly in
impact on
Africa. And so,
agriculture. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And so the idea of the bad idea, the good idea within the bad one, is part of the judo, the aikido technique that I share with the audience. So the power of the opponent to defeat him, using the power of the problem to solve it. In
mm,
this case, using the power of the pipe in order to create a completely new approach that actually brought so much blessing to all over the world. And look, if you have this satisfaction of helping people starving and have nothing in their fields, and suddenly you bring them such blessing, it's a huge alibi for your existence morally.
mhm. Perfect segue. Perfect segue. You must also be clairvoyant, because as I listen to you talk about this, I question whether or not, because so coming back into the organizational system, right? We have
Yeah, yeah.
people, such diversity, people from all different cultures with all different values and ideas. Do you think that we ever come up against moral considerations when thinking of new ideas and brainstorming?
Well, I thought about it quite in depth because on one hand you have to be completely free in your mind to
Yeah.
consider all kinds of ideas, including immoral. Not because I'm for immoral ideas, but because sometimes immoral ideas can bring good idea.
Mm.
So it's just part of the process. Immoral idea, I can give you an example. There was a company in the States where the people who repped the end product actually started reading the paper that they wrapped with. So the whole pace was slowed down, and the management didn't know what to do. So they offered all kinds of ideas, but all of them were rejected because of budget and so on. So what happened? Then they were all despair, and then within the terrible atmosphere that was within this management room, one of them said, "Look, let's take their eyes out of their head because they read too much." So that's an immoral, terrible idea.
Yeah.
And then the manager, instead of just saying, "Well, you are cruel, you are terrible," he said, "Okay, let's hire blind people." So they hired blind people. They solved the problem of wrapping the end product because they
See it.
couldn't read they couldn't read it on one hand. On the other hand, they gained something that they didn't think about to help blind people get work. So they actually got the best in the whole world, and they solve the problem, and they get some even social bonus for the blind people and for the needy and so on, and even some kind of image of the company that became sort of a contributor to society and so on. So just good, just because they used immoral ideas to take out the eyes of the people who wrapped this end product with newspaper. So
Mm.
that, but finally, I would say that I would distinguish between raising ideas that can be immoral and practical practical deeds. I don't think you can conduct immoral deeds in order to achieve a greater achievements in the end. So if you think that you can have a revenue through a practical way that is immoral, skip the idea. Don't use it because it's immoral. That is a distinction that I make between
Okay.
raising the idea, thinking about it, and implementing it. Don't implement a wrong idea, immoral idea. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But it sounds like sometimes that can create the necessary scaffolding to bring things to the right point of consideration. So that was an interesting story. Thank you for that. In terms of methodology, can you talk a little bit, please, about the methodology that you use to teach creativity?
Yeah, yeah. First of all, I think that in my background, I'm also a television person, investigative reporter, and I was a chief editor of the Israeli 60 Minutes in Israel, and so on, and a director of documentaries and series. Some of them were spread all over the world. But in terms of I wouldn't do a documentary about boredom, universal boredom, and I will uh, do it boring, right? I would like it to be interesting. So the same with creativity. I try to be more creative in the workshop itself, in the lecture itself. So I use all kinds of sophisticated magic tricks that challenge our perception about reality. Instead of talking about it, let's be practical. I'll show you. Look, when I open with this example, this is possible, right? This is possible, but this is impossible. This is impossible because it causes one degree 3 in burning, right?
Yes.
So my lecture is called "The Impossible Made Possible." Instead of talking about it, I illustrate it in this way. I make the people who are more involved how we could do it. It didn't it didn't seem to be suffering, and so on. And then immediately we go into the issue itself. I'll show it to you again. This one, by the way, this is a kit that I developed, all kinds of riddles
Yes.
that leads you through the fixation, the clue, why you can solve it, and then the solution, and then the food for thought. What have you learned out of it? But I will show you something nice. I will write a prediction on your behalf. I'll put this here that you'll see that we don't touch it. Okay, so I'm writing now a prediction on your behalf, Brenda. That is a prediction. I put it here. I don't touch it. The audience can see that I don't touch it. I put the pen here. Nothing. Okay. My hands are clear. Now try to pick up any number between 1 and 100.
7.
7. Would you like to change it, or it's your free will?
No, 7. First thing that
7.
came to my mind.
Okay. So usually during the workshop, it's much larger and deeper. But let's see. You can still change it. But I would say that now it's written like that, and you can where is it? Yeah, you can still change it. I predict. Okay, I predict that Brenda will say, as if of free will, the number. Would you like to change it? Well,
No.
no. So it's 7, right?
Yes, it is.
10,000 kilometers, and still I influenced you to think before you thought, before you knew what is a challenge. And 10,000 kilometers from Israel, I could predict that you will say 7. Now, we don't have enough time to explain how it worked, but it didn't work because of parapsychology. It didn't work because of some natural gift from God or whatever. It happened because of, of a fixation in our controlled rational thinking. In the workshop, I, of course, enlarge it and explain it much better. But the point is that I could predict 1 out of 100. What will you say? Has a rational explanation that is based on our way of thinking and in our interaction now, in spite of the fact that there are 10,000 kilometers.
That's
And
amazing.
so
And
it
what's
becomes,
interesting,
yeah. Sorry,
I
sorry.
apologize, I didn't want to cut you off. I wanted to say what was interesting is that 7 came to my mind. And then I thought, well, what else? And it was almost like a magnetic field. I said, nope, 7. That's the first thing I thought of. So I'm going to
Yeah.
go with 7.
Yes, but I asked you if you would like to change. And the point is that nobody changes. Out of 3,000 times that I made it, nobody ever changes first choice. Why? Because we don't tend to change. We tend to stay in our comfort zone. And when we usually we change a lot of approaches when we face a problem, but at the moment that when we are in our comfort zone, we won't pay the little price to change when we have the options. Why? Because of ego. Because I said you can change. Within the change, within this option, you can change 20 times. All the time, change, 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 free will. But instead of getting the free will as a choice, we get in the free will and we translate it to you won't cause me to change my first choice. It becomes a battle of wits, battle of
Yeah,
power. And
yeah,
that is something that the organization can adopt when I demonstrate it in such way. And you see that the general manager doesn't change, the last employee in the chain doesn't change. We don't tend to change anything because we like to be safe. We
yeah,
like to be in our boundaries. We don't want to dare. We don't want somebody to laugh at us. Why did he change? How come that he influenced her? And so on. So
yeah,
you are in a good company that I belong to the same company, because I'm also bound to the same fixations. I just fight them in more awareness, but with more awareness. But I'm also part of the weakness, human weakness that
I was going
all
to
of
say
us in all
this
cultures.
human condition,
Yeah,
this human condition that we're faced, that we're
right,
challenged
right,
with.
right. Because it's part of our survival tradition, and
Yeah,
all the cultures. You asked me before about cultures. All the cultures all over the world are the same. It depends on the in the awareness, in
mm,
the aspirations of the culture, in the leadership, but mainly there is just we are talking about races. Just we have just one race, the human race. That is the only race that I acknowledge.
yeah. This has been fascinating, and I wish we had more time today, but this will be hopefully the first of multiple conversations that we'll have. And I'm excited about working with you to develop an offering so that we can invite people to engage in this the way we're engaging now. So thank you so much for sharing your insights
Thank you.
and your experience. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you,
Any
Brenda. I think
final?
I think that the whole negotiation with you, the whole communication with you was very fruitful, and I enjoyed very much having this communication and opportunity. And I thank you very much for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. To be continued.
Right, right.
Okay.
Bye, bye,
Thank you,
bye.
everyone. So
Thank
long.
you, thank you. Bye, bye.